Welcome to the Prosper in Private Practice podcast. I'm Claire Feldman, here to guide you to a thriving private practice without burnout. If you're a counsellor or therapist seeking more aligned clients, flexible hours and financial stability, then join me. As a therapist of 12 years, I've turned my own challenges into success, so let's grow your dream private practice together. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hello everyone, I hope you are well. This is a little solo episode that I'm bringing you today, and I'm going to be chatting to you about discovery calls. The reason why I've decided that I'm going to talk about this today is on the Q&A call in my membership last week, there was quite a few queries came up around how to handle certain situations, around discovery calls, how to end the calls appropriately, when to follow up, is it okay to follow up, what to do if a client says they're going to get back in contact with you and then they end up ghosting you. So these were a lot of the queries and conversations coming up in the Q&A call, so I thought I would just do a little podcast episode around this to address some of it. I know people can have really mixed feelings about whether to do a discovery call or not. I know some people will feel very much like they don't see the benefit in doing a free call, that it is undermining to be offering that time for free, and that's what the assessment sessions are for, and therefore believe that it should be paid, which I understand and can respect. And then on the other side of that is that actually it is a great opportunity to build rapport and to check might this be a suitable fit before going and having initial sessions. For me personally, my preference is 100% to do a discovery call with any client that's interested in working with me. I absolutely despise using the telephone. I will watch my telephone ring. I do not answer my phone. So I do my discovery calls on Zoom, and I prefer that. I prefer to be able to see the client, and I think as I work in kind of the eating disorders realm, it's definitely much more preferable for me to be able to see the client and engage with them. And I also feel, for me, my view on this is that I like to try and put as much effort into all the stuff before I'm speaking with the client on the discovery call to ensure that the chances are that by the time that person is booking a call with me, that it's a good possibility that they are actually a good fit client anyway. And so what I mean by that is that my website and the content on my website speaks directly to my ideal client. I have a podcast attached to my website, and so they may well listen to some of my podcast episodes. There's blogs on there, so that hopefully by the time they've got to that point of making the call, that they will have been able to determine through my content that they might be a good fit client to work with me. And so that ideally when they're getting onto the discovery call, it's more just kind of a conversation and to check that for both of us, this feels like it could be a good working relationship kind of moving forward. I think people can get a bit of an idea in their heads that discovery calls are like sales pitches. They are not sales pitches, and it shouldn't be something where you're coming on and sweating and feeling like you have to do like jazz hands and make yourself appear to be some amazing therapist. It's not that at all. It's just kind of, it's checking that there's a rapport, that this that this feels that we could be right for each other, that you're checking competence as well, and that it's perfectly okay that at the end of that call, that if you're not the right therapist and you don't feel like you're the right therapist, it is absolutely good practice and it's much more ethical that you are communicating that on that call. So for me, my discovery calls are 30 minutes long. I'm more than happy to invest that time free of charge because it's more than likely that for most people that decide to continue on and work with me and become clients, that they're going to be working with me long term. And it's not a situation where someone will start working with me and then a session or two in decide that it's not right for them and then disengage. That generally doesn't happen. And I think putting that time and effort into my marketing and into the discovery calls really helps with that as well. I do also, when somebody books a discovery call with me, they book through Calendly, and when they've booked the call through Calendly, I have an automation set up where they get sent an email and they'll be asked to complete a little Google form before the discovery call, and that just gives me a little bit of background information about them, their age, any medical history, difficulties that they are experiencing, what support they're looking for. And again, that means I'm not going blind onto the call, and that I have a little bit of information and a little bit of background history. And again, a better sense of whether they might be an ideal client for me to work with as well. So when it comes to holding and conducting the discovery call, what I might do, I have a little guide, like a little script inside my membership community for my members to really help them whenever they're conducting their discovery calls. What I'll maybe do is just walk through that little guide with you. If this is something that you maybe feel you lack confidence in conducting your discovery calls, or you're never quite sure what to say, then you can kind of use this as a little bit of an outline or a little bit of a guide for you. And what I'll maybe even do is I might tag a copy of the PDF in the show notes below, and that you can get a copy of it there if you wish as well. So I think the most important thing to say when it comes to discovery calls is they are not counselling sessions. So please be really mindful that you don't kind of go into autopilot and start treating it like a counselling session. This is an information gathering call. This is just a checking that you're checking your own competence for working with this client and checking that this might be a good fit. So just be mindful it's not a counselling session, and that very much that you are in control of it. And so I recommend that you are taking control of the call and the format and structure of the call right from the beginning. So when you first come on the call with the potential client, I recommend, obviously after you've done the pleasantries with each other, I recommend then that you start by giving them an idea of what the structure of your discovery call is going to look like. For me, it's usually, I'll explain to them that we'll spend a little bit of time talking about their difficulties and the impact that it's having on them and what support they feel they need and that they're looking for. And then I'll spend a little bit of time talking about how I work and what the process of that looks like. And then at the end, if there's any final questions that they have, and then we'll close. So they've kind of got a sense of how long the call is going to be and what the format and the structure of that is loosely going to look like. So I recommend that you do that as well. Even if it's just a 15-minute call that you do, make it clear from the beginning that it's just a 15-minute call and what that structure is going to look like. So you probably want to spend, depending on how long your discovery call is, that maybe just under half of what your discovery call time is, that you want to use that time really getting a good picture of what the difficulties are that your potential client is having. So you might be asking them to describe kind of the main challenges or the main issues that they're facing, understand how long it's been impacting them for, and whether they have sought help or counselling in the past, and just get a good sense of how their difficulties are impacting them on a day-to-day basis and in their life, whether they have any coping mechanisms that they're using currently, maybe what's working for them, what's not working for them. So you're just trying to get a good sense of what the difficulties are and how it's impacting them. I think it's also a really good idea to Ask the potential client as well, like, because everybody has different preferences around how they work, and different, different approaches, and different will respond differently, I guess, to different types. Not, I don't necessarily mean modalities, but some people work really well with structure and homeworks and plans and things like that, and other people don't and despise things like that. So I think it's also important to know that your client potentially may have no idea about what your modality is, what your preferred modality is, and they may not care. So I think it's good for us to be asking questions around what they feel their support should look like, or what they feel they would really kind of get the most benefit from, and if they have any preference around ways of working. And also try and get a bit of an idea of ideally what they would like to get out of sessions. So I'll often ask the person on the call, if we work together for a period of time, what would you hope to see? What would you like to be the outcome at the end of our sessions, and really get a sense of what it is that they are looking for. And I think what that can sometimes then bring up is also if potentially what they are seeking might be something that you can't deliver or not able to do. So like an example of that in my niche area would be, my specialism is around binge eating, and invariably most clients that I work with will have a desire and a goal for weight loss, and so many of them will be seeking weight loss, even though their priority is to stop binging. Their priority is to heal their relationship with food and improve their eating habits and behaviors. But underlying all of them pretty much will be a desire to lose weight. And so that they may express that is what they're seeking. And so it's really important for me to be really clear that I don't work to weight loss goals or weight loss targets, and it's certainly not the focus of the work that I do. That the work that I do is about addressing the binge eating, about healing the relationship with food, and the body will do whatever the body is going to do, but I certainly don't make promises or don't make guarantees. For the most part, clients will be okay with that and be understanding of that. Now that doesn't mean that they then just lose the desire to lose weight, but they're very clear that it can't be the area of focus and the number one focus of our sessions together. So most are understanding, and kind of they have a sense and know that anyway, and they kind of have got that sense maybe off my content and my website anyway. But perhaps for the odd person, that might be the thing that for them they decide, actually, no, it's like for me, it's the weight loss and I have to lose weight, and that's where their attention and their focus needs to go. And in which case, then I would have to say that I'm not the right therapist for them. So getting a real good sense of what their goals are and what they're hoping to get out of working with you can also help give you a little bit of insight into whether this might be the right fit, or whether it might be more appropriate for you to refer them on to somewhere else. So once they have shared some information with you about the challenges, the difficulties, how it's impacting them on a day-to-day basis, what their goals are, and how they believe that they would best work, and what the best type of support might look like for them, you just want to spend then maybe a minute or two just summarising what they've told you, so that they know that they have been acknowledged, that they have been heard, that their concerns have been heard. You're just summarising what it is that they have told you they're struggling with, and what the support is that they're looking for. And at that point, I guess that if you feel like this is outside of my competence, or there is a concern here, or an ethical concern that I don't think I can work with this person, like if there is a concern like that is flagging up for you at that time, it is okay. I appreciate this can feel really uncomfortable, and that we want to say yes to everybody, and that we want to help everybody. that it can feel really uncomfortable, the idea of saying no. But I think it is so important that particularly trusting your gut if something is kind of sending you signals and going off in this discovery call that it doesn't feel right, that your gut may be trying to tell you something, and that it is perfectly okay for you to refer a potential client on if it doesn't feel like it's quite right for you. That for me would tend to be, I don't tend to work with anorexia clients, and if I do have an anorexia client that comes on a call or comes in to see me in the office, once we've kind of gone through the session and gone through the discovery call, I will explain that it's not about them. It's more that I wouldn't be able to give them the quality of care and service that they deserve, and that there are more appropriate therapists out there, and that I will be quite happy to facilitate that. And I think framing it in that way, that it's not that, oh God, your problem is too big for me. It's just more about ensuring that they're getting the right support, because this is a big decision, particularly, in private practice. It's a big decision, it's a big investment, and so we want to frame it in a way that is supportive and understanding, and that you're ensuring that you're getting the right quality of care for them. It can feel really, really hard to do that, and I think particularly when maybe we're struggling to even find clients in private practice. But trust me when I say, because I have been here too many times to admit that I've said yes to clients when I should have said no, and then I've ended up really regretting it a number of sessions in, where I'm either feeling out of my depth, or I've got a sense of dread when their appointment time is coming round each week. And it's not a nice feeling to have, and it's certainly not fair on the client either. So we have to kind of get that confidence, and this comes in time, but get that confidence around being able to actually say that this is not a good fit. We're not a good fit for each other, but I'm going to support you to find someone who can really support your needs much better than I can. And I think that is kind of the honourable and the right thing to do in those situations. So that's if it doesn't feel like it's a good fit. That's what you would want to do then, and that you would obviously go and try and connect and find other therapists that you could potentially refer them onto. If it does feel like they are a good fit, then what you want to do is spend a little bit of time just explaining your services, and explain a little bit about the way in which you work. And again, you've probably heard me say this probably a million times, is explain how you work, but without sounding too jargony and too therapisty. So they won't have a great understanding of modalities or the kind of therapist jargon that we use. So you just want to explain in nice, simple kind of language how you help clients, how you help the clients that you work with. If you have a particular niche area and that's what this client is looking for support in, you can also just share a little bit of insight into, without obviously disclosing, you can share a little bit of insight into how you have worked with other clients who have similar difficulties to what this client is. And that can be really reassuring then for this potential client, that you have experience in this area, you have helped people in this area before, and that will help build a little bit of trust, kind of trust and reassurance in you and your capabilities as a therapist as well. So you might want to share a little bit of that, your experience kind of to date. Then the horrible bit. Can you guess what the horrible bit is that comes next? Yes, you've got it. I have to tell them my fees. This is the squirmy bit that therapists try to dance around, try not to do, try to sugarcoat it, or Well, I know I've absolutely done this, so no shade whatsoever. Is to when you're on a call and then right at the last second, whenever the client is asking how much your fees are, suddenly your fees get slashed. And a couple of quid, or 10 quid or 5 quid or something gets slashed off the fee. I have done that. And I know lots of you, because I've spoken with you, have done that as well. So my tip for you when you are sharing your fees is that you state what your fees are, not the slashed fee, not the quick made up fee in your mind, that you're stating what your fee is, your full fee. Then you say nothing. And that silence is awkward, isn't it? You say your fee and then you say nothing. Now, I tend to hate silences, so at that point, that's when I used to jump in and try and rationalize what my fee was, or even just jump in and say, well, if that's too much for you, then I can accommodate a lower fee. I was offering lower fees before the client had even asked anything about lower fees. So I want you to practice this, that you state what your fee is, and then you allow silence. If they are silent, if the person on the call is silent, it does not mean that they are in a state of shock or they're about to go into cardiac arrest over your fees. It just means they're processing. It just means they're processing, that they're taking the information on board, and they might be figuring things out in their head. I personally prefer to have my fees very, very clear on my website. I cannot abide people not having fees on their site, but it's quite possible that a client will book a discovery call with you having not checked your fees, or that they've briefly skimmed them and not really registered and not really taken it in. So you are going to want to ensure that you're discussing it and that you're clear on it on the call. So give them that time to process. Do not avoid the temptation to jump in, to justify, to do anything. Just allow that silence. And then that's an opportunity for them if they want to ask, any further questions. And it might be that once they have the fee, that either they might come back and respond and say, yes, that sounds great, or I need a bit of time to think about it. Or it might be that you then want to come back to them and say, so I think that I can help you. These are my fees and these are my terms. And would you like to book in a session? So you can ask that, you can ask, would you like to proceed and book a session? And it might be that they say, yes, absolutely. And if they know that they want to work with you, then you get the diaries out and you get that first session agreed and confirmed at the time. Or it might be that it's, no, they might feel like, no, actually it's, for whatever reason, it's not quite right for me. Or it might be, can I take a little bit of time to think about it? Because they might simply need to go away to process it, to check finances. They might need to have a conversation with a loved one. Or it may well be, and this again, I have experienced this numerous times, is that you might be one of 3 or 4 discovery calls that they're having, and so they might want to go and have the other discovery calls and then make a decision, which they are perfectly entitled to do and which is completely okay. So if the outcome is, and this is where the question came up on the on my membership Q&A call last week, that if the outcome is can I go away and think about it, what is really important for you to do is to not just finish the call with, yeah, sure, no problem, sure, get in touch whenever suits you, okay, bye. Don't do that. Because there are many reasons why that person potentially may not get back in contact with you, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you not being the right therapist for them. It could be just simply life got really busy and they got distracted and got sidetracked and didn't get back in contact with you. It might be, I don't know, something terrible has happened, a crisis has come up. Like, we just don't know. So I would really urge you to not leave it vague, not leave it open-ended, and just leave it that they'll get in touch whenever suits, because you're then left kind of hanging on, wondering, do they want to work with me? Do they not want to work with me? Maybe I put them off. Did I do something wrong? And maybe it's none of those things. So if they want to go away and have some time to think about it, then I would usually agree that you're going to follow up with them within a specified amount of time. Usually I would say 48 hours. And I'll ask the client what suits you best. Would you like to follow up with me and come back to me, or would you like me to follow up with you in 48 hours time? And I'll see what they would prefer to do. A lot of the time they actually say you get back in contact with me, because it just means that they don't have to remember. So a lot of them will ask me to then follow up with them. And so that's what you do. Then if you've agreed at the end of that call that you're going to follow up in 48 hours time, then you might want to send them a little email. And this just be a really simple email saying like, hi, it was good to talk to you on, and then insert whatever the date was. As agreed, I'm following up to see if you have any further thoughts or any further questions about us working together. So you're doing exactly what you said you were going to do and following up with them. And all being well, that client is going to come back to you and confirm whether they want to proceed or whether they don't. Now, another question that came up on the Q&A call last week is that they've had a discovery call, and at the end of the discovery call, the person has said, can I have time to think about it? And the therapist has said, yes, no problem. And then they have followed up with the client, and then there's been no answer. And she was asking, do I then just like drop it and just leave it and that be it? And what I kind of recommended was that I would still follow up again. Maybe one more time I would follow up again, because I think we have to give people the benefit of the doubt that there could be a potential reason why they haven't responded or get back in touch with them. So I would tend to send maybe one more follow-up email, just say that you're following up on the call and following up on their last email to see if they're still interested in working together, and maybe something along that if you don't hear back within a specified amount of time, that maybe you'll assume that they aren't interested in continuing and in pursuing. But I think at least that way you have engaged in good practice. If you've agreed to follow up, even if the person has ghosted and not come back, you're following good practice by following up and checking. And this was a real area of conversation on the call where the therapists were feeling like, God, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be pushy, and I don't want to appear desperate either by sending these emails being like, do you want to work with me? Do you want to work with me? And it's not that at all. You are a professional, and at the end of the day, this is your business, that you have agreed something and that you are following it up. And let's just try and assume that for the individual who you're following up with, that there may be something going on with them. And kind of like what I explained is like, for me, like I said, I watch my phone ring, and I'm terrible with responding to messages. I am planning on working with a coach next month, and she has sent me quite a lot of voice notes and messages and is asking for a response. And that for me, I find actually really anxiety provoking. And I have every intention of working with this person, but I'm not prompt with getting back. and replying and messages and stuff. So when I get a bit easily overwhelmed, I tend to kind of shut down and block things out until I get into a place when I'm ready to do so. So that's kind of what I was explaining to the group, that yes, it may well be you may be being ghosted, they may not want to work with you, but there could be a possibility that they're just overwhelmed right now. There's a lot going on. Maybe they still have some more discovery calls to do. Maybe life has just gotten in the way, that there can be a number of reasons why they've not come back to you. So just try to give the benefit of the doubt and follow up until you know you have followed that up in a professional way, and clarified then that if you haven't heard back from them, that you'll not contact them any further. So I hope that might alleviate some of those fears, because I think we get it into our head that as therapists that it's unethical to be emailing. It's not at all. It's good practice and it's good business practice. And that also goes, by the way, for if somebody comes back to you and decides that they don't want to work with you, and they've decided to go with another therapist, you absolutely could come back and ask for feedback around if there is any reason why, because that might be helpful information. And that might be just as simple as, I had one recently where my background is CBT, and that they preferred to go kind of down another approach, and they were interested in another modality, and that was the feedback. And that's absolutely fine. But you can absolutely go back and ask feedback if someone doesn't want to work with you. Get some feedback around why, because that might provide some really helpful information for you that could potentially maybe even help you in how you handle and how you conduct your discovery calls going forward. So don't be scared to ask questions. Don't be scared to send emails. You are all so very mindful of your clients. You're also very mindful of being ethical. You're always merely mindful of confidentiality. You are not going to be crossing lines. You're not going to be rude. You're not going to say anything that you shouldn't say. I absolutely know that you will send very very clear, concise, and understanding emails to people, and that all you are looking for is some feedback. So again, that's something for you to have a little bit of a think about if you ordinarily don't. If you take that being ghosted or not getting a response back as a rejection, maybe try and reframe that as an opportunity to get some feedback that might help you in the future. So that is it for today's episode. I hope you have found that helpful. I will see if I can link the little guide, the discovery call guide, into the show notes. If for whatever reason I don't manage to get it linked in, you can send me a little message, send me a little email, and I'll be happy to share it with you. You can find me on Instagram at The Enriched Practice, via my website www.theenrichedpractice.com, or you can send me an email, claire@theenrichedpractice.com. But for now, I hope you have a great day, and I will chat to you all really soon. Take care.